Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you all. Hope I sound a little better than I did yesterday. Still not quite right, but improving. Just to set us in time and space, it's the 18th of September, which means we're more than halfway through this month, and that leaves us with October. And then 5 days into the next month, we get to vote. That's how quickly this is coming, but not quickly enough, if you ask me. God, jeez, Lord. Okay, lots as usual to talk about. Um, I first have to talk about what the Israelis did yesterday, which when I first heard of it, I thought, good Lord. I mean, it was, the stuff of science fiction kind of stuff. It was so intricate, a caper, a deadly caper, and pulled off obviously without any problems. I mean, the fact that they had to at some point intercept the pagers that were to be delivered, knowing where those pagers were and where they were going, somehow intercepting them, somehow putting explosives in them, and then sealing up the boxes, the packaging, letting them go on their merry way, and then bang. I mean, it is impressive. And but but it gives us a sobering glimpse of where we're heading in this technological age in terms of the ability of warring nations, or bad actors, as they say, to do damage simply by using the technology available and the technology that is in everybody's hands and homes and cars, right? So this militarization of daily kinds of instruments, this is obviously concerning to anybody who looks ahead. I mean, we could none of this is surprising. Once we were out ahead, the Americans started the drone stuff, right? Where we were congratulating ourselves on this, the very specific way we had of just killing a specific person from far away. The killers, the person actually doing the killing, seated possibly, in another continent in front of a screen, and pushing a button, and then bango, somebody someplace else is dead on the spot. So the drone warfare, which we were out in front of, is now obviously playing out in a real active war with Ukraine and Russia. And I don't think any of us can even conceive of where we're going in terms of what technology is going to do to our lives and also to the way people die. I don't think the average person can conjure this particular dystopian reality that will exist and already does exist to a certain point. The Israeli attack on Hezbollah yesterday is just another reminder of this will not stop. It will continue so that, well, I think it was David Ignatius, I think, um, who said it best. Um, Maybe I don't know this. Hang on a minute. I wanted to. Oh, I know where it is. Sorry, I don't know where I'm putting things these days. He said this: beyond its devastating effect on Hezbollah, the attack signals the beginning of a new and very dangerous era in cyber warfare. Um, any device that is connected to the internet can potentially be transformed into a weapon. So that means we're all sitting now in our homes or cars or wherever we are, and we're sitting in places that can rather easily be weaponized. Seriously, by those intending us ill. Um, so this Ignatius says the circuits of a so-called smart appliance can be manipulated so that they malfunction in a very specific and potentially dangerous way. You'll remember the thing called the Stuxnet cyber attack. That was against Iran and its nuclear program. And I believe that was largely credited again to the Israelis, but it was brilliant. And they managed to put some malware into the program, into the computers, that caused the centrifuges in their nuclear facilities to spin out of control so that they became unstable and self-destructed. Now, in that case, we can say, yippee. For that matter, you could even, I'm sure a lot of people saying yippee for yesterday, because that was a very specific, targeted, anyone who had one of those pagers was by definition of the United States and Israel, a terrorist. So, but we have to understand that if you have a smart refrigerator or a smartphone or a smart television or a smart anything, all of those things can be used by others against you. So he ends this by saying, with each new advance of weapons technology, designers will imagine that they'll have the exclusive use of this deadly tool of war. But obviously, that's not true, because that's what the United States once had with drones, and they are now a pervasive instrument of war. I also want to say that most people who have no understanding of Israel's geography or Israel's history or don't know much about anything often have very strong opinions based on very little information. And to somebody who has been there 3 times, it is an astonishing place in every way. Historically, obviously. I mean, so much human history happened on that little slice of real estate. Um, and so just walking around it, every time your foot falls, one step after another, you think, good Lord, so and so could have stood right here. It's sort of mind blowing there. You stand on the Sea of Galilee, you stand at the, all of these places that you know of from your religious studies. Be you a Jew, be you a Christian, be you a Muslim. Um, but I have often said that Israel is a country surrounded by enemies who want to destroy it. Imagine living that way. Americans can't have any comprehension of that. As far as we know, the Canadians have no ill intent. They're not itching to kill us. Same with the Mexicans. And then, who did I quote the other day? And then on the east and west, we have what? Fish, oceans. So we enjoy a kind of life here in the United States that cannot comprehend the internal fear of simply being an Israeli. I, who am have a gimpy gait and a brace on my leg, if I were, if I had to, let's put it this way, if I had to, even as an old woman with a bad knee and a worse foot, I could walk across the width of Israel in a day. Imagine that. Imagine that. Now, that is its narrowest point. But even at its widest point, some of you who are in better shape than I could run across it in a day. It is a tiny, tiny place. And from north to south, it's 263 miles. Think of that and what that would mean in this expansive country of ours. What a quick drive that is. It is a tiny place, and it is beset and besieged since its first day of life as a country, on its north, on its south, on its east, and on its west. And it still is. And people who don't understand the geography, okay, so you've got the war front now, Gaza, that's on its west. But you have Hezbollah on its north. And Hezbollah has been sending missiles into Israel since this thing started up. And that has not been reported on much. So that there are a whole bunch of towns in northern Israel that have been abandoned. I mean, they had to be evacuated. There are over 50,000 Israelis who have had to leave their homes and are now, living somewhere in the south in some kind of temporary housing. I don't know. Just want to say, it's hard for most people who have no understanding of the history and the geography and the animosity and the hatred that surrounds that country to understand the Israeli mindset. Okay, also want to say about this now information where we have a person, a name, Amber Thurman, of a woman, young woman, who is dead because of Republican anti-abortion policy. Dead. Her 6-year-old son without a mother. Her mother without her daughter. Amber Thurman. And she's just the first whose name we know. Kamala Harris has spoken of other women that we have heard about who almost died because of these abortion bans and the fear of doctors to treat them when they're in a condition that could lead to their deaths. Women in incredible stress and distress being told to wait in the parking lot until their organs begin to fail. And then maybe the doctors will do what they can to save her life. And there have been a number of women who have gotten that treatment and managed somehow in the last second to be plucked back from death. Amber Thurman wasn't so lucky. She found out she was pregnant very early, but unfortunately, it wasn't at 6 weeks. And she lived in Georgia, where there was a 6-week abortion ban. Right after Roe was overturned, Georgia and other states, jumped in and created these laws. So she took time off from her work, got a babysitter, paid for a babysitter to stay with her son, and with a friend drove to North Carolina, where she had made an appointment to have an abortion. They ran into really bad traffic, and by the time they got to the clinic in North Carolina, the clinic said her spot had been filled because she hadn't been there on time, and they could not help her. They said, we can't give you a surgical abortion. We can give you a medical one. We can give you pills. So she took the pills and went back home, and then took the pills, and it didn't go well for her. She began bleeding. This happens in like 2 to 3% of instances where a pill is used. And with medical intervention, everything is okay. Women in that situation would go to a hospital and would be, administered to. Well, she went to the hospital. She needed a DNC. She needed her uterus cleared, and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it because the law in Georgia criminalized what the doctors had to do unless she was near death. So that then becomes a game you play. Is she near death enough? Have enough of her organs shut down? Well, Amber Thurman wasn't as lucky as some of the others. Her last words to her mother were, "Promise me you'll take care of my son." A Georgia State Medical Review Board termed her death preventable. Now, here's the thing. There are other dead women. We just don't know their names. And it's because in most states, the review that is done of women's deaths in cases like this can take 1 to 2 years. State committees that are assigned to actually review maternal mortality usually operate with a 2-year lag. So we're just going to begin seeing instances like Amber Thurman's. Women who've died since Roe. And they won't all ever be noted. It was one case like this in Ireland. One case. In 2012, Ireland, the most Catholic of countries, with an abortion ban like we have in so many states now, where a woman could only be helped if she was facing certain death. And in their case, in Ireland, if they could detect a fetal heartbeat, the woman could not be helped. And a 31-year-old woman there died. Her fetus's heart was still beating, but hers stopped first. And, it occurs to me here, what's been accomplished? Is the fetus alive? No. Are the fetuses that Amber Thurman was carrying, she was carrying twins, are they alive? No. Who got saved here? Nobody. But in Ireland in 2012, that story, a story every bit the same, essentially, as Amber Nicole Thurman's here, that story galvanized that Catholic country. And they ended up, Ireland, passing a national referendum to make abortion legal throughout the country. It passed in a landslide in a Catholic country. But that won't be the case here. Because dead women don't really necessarily galvanize America. We'll see. We'll see. I had mentioned before, and I also want to say that I have maybe not enough information, but how and it's an unpopular point of view here, unpopular with both presidential candidates. Yeah, Trump and Harris, something they actually agree on, which I disagree with, and that is the potential sale of U.S. steel to a Japanese company. I think it's wrong-headed. I think it's because of political, obviously, it's purely political, almost. I understand that there would be some national security concerns about another, country's steel industry picking up ownership in something actually called U.S. steel. But let's be honest here. The reason it's such a political hot potato is because of where U.S. Steel is headquartered, which is right here in the most necessary battleground state for both these presidential candidates. And so that's how they arrive at. That's how Biden, that's how Harris, and that's how Trump all came to the same point. Oh no, we're not going to sell U.S. Steel, that iconic company. But if you look at what Nippon Steel is offering and what U.S. Steel says will be the reality if the sale doesn't go through, there's not going to be a win here for the steel workers if this sale doesn't go through. U.S. Steel is hardly the behemoth it was. I don't know where it stands, but it's not even in the top 10 of steelmaking companies. It's a faltering company in many ways. And the large mills that it had, mostly here, are things that they have not put money into, as we know. They have not upgraded them. They have instead, U.S. Steel has opened facilities in the South. You know why? Because there are probably no pesky unions down there, and also lower pay scales and all kinds of lack of regulation. So they have what are called mini mills now in the south of the US, and that is where their future will be. And they have said they will focus in the future. In other words, if the Nippon deal doesn't go through, US Steel isn't going to be upgrading any facility up here. It will be putting any resources it has into those southern mini mills. In fact, it might not even keep its headquarters here. It could just pick up and leave. And I really think that people are being really, really stupid about this. I think if this deal doesn't go through, you will see layoffs here. You will see a further degradation of the mills here. You could well see U.S. Steel pick up and leave. If Nippon comes in and the sale goes through, those mills here will be retrofitted. Nippon has promised they're going to upgrade them because they have the resources to do it. That could well mean more jobs. I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. And it's not like it's the Chinese, it's the Japanese, our dear friends. How things change. Our major allies. Look, if the Japanese don't come in and buy it, it's not like it's going to be good. No one else wants it. Somebody else, I forget, there's an American company that did offer. They offered half of what Nippon Steel is offering. I think the union's nuts. And I think I understand everybody is, just doing what they think they have to do. The fact that the Biden administration has now said it is delaying its plan to put the kibosh on this deal until after the election does give me hope that it will not be then as politicized. We'll see. Okay, that's just my 2 cents. And again, I don't know. I might be totally wrong about that, but I don't think so. From what I've read, no, it just seems like a lot of political pandering going on. And if you look at it with, just cold business-like eyes, that deal's a pretty damn good deal for a company that is really faltering and is in no way inclined to help the big old decrepit polluting mills around here. That's been clear for some time. Okay, just want to tell you something that's going on in Reno that I've told you about before, but it's happening now this week, and that is that it's totally closed hearing where a judge, I don't think they're called a judge, they're called a probate something or other, where some judge-like guy in Reno, a guy named Gorman, is listening to testimony from Rupert Murdoch and each one of his children, because Rupert is trying to change, it's not his will, but it's his the trust, I guess, that controls his his media holdings. And it's an irrevocable trust. It's one that supposedly he can't muck with. But the terms of the trust allow him to change it if it's determined that he's making a change because it will benefit all of the parties, and that he's making the change in good faith. Well, you know damn well he ain't making it in good faith. What he's trying to do is have his son, one son, control everything, where the trust says all 4 children will have equal control. Rupert wants the one son, Lachlan, who's most like him and shares his politics, to have the control because he knows his other 3 children are not as much inclined to ruin the world. I don't know. This is happening in Reno because I guess really rich people like to what do? You register a trust somewhere. They like to do it in Nevada because probate law there is really good to really rich people in terms of keeping things private, which is what's happening now. This case is happening now, and there ain't no reporters allowed anywhere near it. Now, it's expected that, the New York Times says this testimony that's going on right now, if we could only see it, would be as gripping and Shakespearean as anything in that hit HBO show Succession, which was actually based on the Murdoch family. So the guy who is hearing this is 43 years old. His opinion will be essentially a recommendation that goes then to what's called a 3 probate judge panel. And who knows? Once he makes the recommendation, that 3 judge panel then signs off or not. And of course, as we've all learned in these times, even after that, if the side that comes out on the short end is unhappy, they have the right to appeal through the Nevada court system. And obviously, then this could go on for years. Just saying. But Murdoch, who's 93 years old, the clock's ticking on him, because as the trust exists now, Lachlan does not have the control that his daddy wants him to have, and the control is now with all 4. So there's that. Speaking of rich people, I want to. I think the most fascinating piece I've read in a long time, and it's not that it's anything I didn't know, but it's put so beautifully and so clearly, and it explains how Donald Trump got to be president of the United States in this country. And it is because this country has become a celebrity worshiping country. And he became, and always his ambition was, more than even to be the richest, was to be known as the richest, whether that were true or not. And I have also said that when it comes to the historic reckoning of who harmed and or destroyed, God forbid, American democracy, some of the names will not be these big names, will not be Donald Trump necessarily. It'll be the people who facilitated, who created the structure. It'll be Roger Ailes, who founded Fox News. It will be Mark Burnett, a television producer, the genius who essentially created reality TV, God help us. Incredible moneymaker. He created Survivor. That was pretty much the first reality show. And the article points out that the first season of Survivor changed everything, because the idea that the producers had was a show in which all of these contestants would have to work together to try to get to the next level. There'd obviously have to be some political play going on. You would need the good, you would need people to like you, because otherwise they'll help vote you off, right? So, but there was one contestant who didn't care about being liked. His name was Richard Hatch. And Richard Hatch kept moving up in the competition, stabbing people in the back. He was a player. He didn't care about being liked, but he understood power dynamics. And he actually outsmarted the producers. They assumed he would be part of this key challenge at the end. It was supposed to end the program in a certain way, and he opted out. I don't remember any of this. And he maneuvered himself around the producers of the show and to victory. And doing so, he broke the golden rule of network television. You have to be likable. This article, which is written by the chief executive of a TV production company, a guy who knows this stuff, Michael Hirshhorn, he said it was so shocking at the time. David Letterman on his show had said before the first season of Survivor ended, if that fat naked guy, and that was Richard Hatch, if that fat naked guy wins, they'll be rioting in the streets. He was the most hated man in America, but everybody knew his name. And the television business took notice. And they began leaning into reality shows in which people behaved badly, saying and doing things that were, absolutely outrageous or hurtful or terrible. And as this guy says, and as the viewers who watched would look at in envy, wishing they could behave so badly. So reality TV then morphed into something, very much like professional wrestling. Here's how this guy puts it, a fully self-referential cinematic universe, artfully playing between reality and the made-up, confected reality, a winking co-creation among players, producers, and audiences that gleefully showcased narcissism, antisocial character traits, rules never having to be followed. And in the process, something called the modern reality star was born. And it was Mark Burnett who went on to have the idea of making a show called The Apprentice. He wanted somebody known as a really smart, brilliant businessman that would lead the show. Donald Trump was not anywhere near his first choice. He went to, trying to remember, Warren Buffett, for God's sake. He went to who was Welch, the guy who was head of GM, I think. He went to, and I'm forgetting, but he was not thinking of Donald Trump. But all those other guys said no. Because you know why? They were actually serious men. And because Trump had spent a lot of time pumping his image of a successful New York real estate developer up. He was well known. He wasn't necessarily well liked, but he was well known. And so they went to him, and they were stunned when they actually saw his operation. Because as one of the producers, and this is coming from this book called Lucky Loser, which is just out, how Donald Trump squandered his father's fortune and created the illusion of success. The producers, when they went to Trump Tower to talk to the Donald about it, they say in the book the first thing they noticed was the smell, the sort of musty carpet odor that was all over the place, the chips in the finish of the desks. It just looked like a dump. His desk that bore no evidence of any work being done there. No computer screens, no piles of paper, no blueprints, just a bunch of articles about himself. And they realized they were going to have to create an image of him that wasn't necessarily true. Before the show, a Gallup poll measuring Trump's reputation said 98% of Americans already knew his name, but 58% viewed him unfavorably. The producers, before the show even began, knew that their job was to make him look legitimate, to make him look like there was something behind it, even though we pretty much knew all of it wasn't, that he had all these bankrupt businesses and that he was in financial straits. And they said in the book, they say, we weren't making a documentary. This was an entertainment show. And boy, they pulled it off. And so and as Trump got into it, he learned how to play the billionaire. And Americans watching the show fell for the whole construct, the made up reality. Because anyone with a brain knows that reality TV is quite the opposite. It's manufactured, it's edited, it is not real. And now Trump brought everything he learned by doing that show to our politics. And it worked. Media fell for it. People fell for it. We'd all been conditioned by television and the celebrity culture. So our politics now has internalized the reality television. Never mind that the future of the country is at stake and not who gets the bachelor's rose, but that's what's happened. And we often say, how does he lie like that? How does he say such outrageous, they're eating dogs? How does he say these outrageous things? These shocking things. He's taken a page from Richard Hatch, the first survivor winner. He has made himself the most hated man in America. And up till now, the rewards have been huge. So if reality television began as a crude depiction of real life, today the opposite can feel true. That our actual life, certainly our political life, is approximating reality television. And we've all been conscripted as cast members. Those were not my words. Those are Hirschhorn, who wrote this brilliant thing. And he says we have arrived, folks, at the final stage of the genre's cultural logic. People with no connection whatsoever to the genre living as if they are reality stars. The contagion has leaked from the lab, to do a COVID metaphor. We are in a period of unchecked community spread. And some of the most successful people in the world now understand that being hated is no problem. I give you Elon Musk. He parades his vileness around. He trumpets outrageous things. He can. And there are people, believe it or not. Most people can't stomach him. Others are in awe of him. And another person who took this whole thing, we'll just do a reality show, and took it into politics. Remember George Santos? The guy who lied his way into the Congress? I'll just leave you with a few other things this guy says. I think it's important we do understand. I mean, the wrestling metaphor, my son mentioned it like years ago, because he loved wrestling. He said, Trump's just a wrestling guy. He's playing the heel. No problem playing the heel. But this Hirschhorn, who's writing this thing, says, but if there's one thing that's true for all of television's genres, it's that the medium is always looking for the next new thing. And he says Kamala Harris seems to have grasped the vibe shift, the invocation of joy, the not about me, but about you. And he ends thusly. The final ratings won't be in until November. But no matter how things turn out, Trump, assuming he is capable of self-reflection, might take a moment now to consider Richard Hatch. Shortly after winning Survivor, Hatch was convicted of child abuse. That was overturned on appeal. He was sentenced, though, to more than 4 years on tax charges, then sentenced to more time for another tax issue. He later tried and failed to start a reality show based on finding and connecting with some of the reportedly hundreds of children conceived using his sperm. He is, in fact, on a reality show now, The House of Villains. It's in its second season. God, geez, I don't understand why anybody watches this crap. Anyway, he ends it thusly. Perhaps a more bracing comparison for Trump, should voters fail to vindicate him this November, is the fate of George Santos. Charged with wire fraud and aggravated identity theft, he recently pleaded guilty. For real. It was a one-day news item. In the greatest indignity of all, it seems the world can no longer bother to hate him. Well, so Hirschhorn here, Michael Hirschhorn, this initially was in New York Times opinion, I guess last Saturday. It does explain a lot of how America has been conditioned, American television viewers conditioned, and because our media is part of that landscape, how easily it fell into aiding Trump, who literally made our country a reality show. I don't know. I wonder how Mark Burnett feels. I can't even imagine. Anyway, the book, the last 20 minutes was based on Hirschhorn's article, but also on articles about this book that is just out called Lucky Loser. And it's the account of the first years of The Apprentice and how he used it to line his pockets in ways that, believe me, the TV people were not expecting. And how little work he ever did, but how he took to it like a fish to water. This was what he was made for. And then, with the help of an unserious public, a consumerist, entertainment, celebrity worshiping public, aided and abetted by a capitalistic media, he made us all part of the reality show. God help us. Okay, so that's it. And just want to say, tomorrow, for the hour, I will have the authors of Behind the Yoy, and it is a just delightful book. I read it cover to cover about Myron Cope, and written by Dan Joseph and Myron's daughter, Elizabeth Cope, who adds stuff about Myron that we don't know. The human being, not the actual reality star that he became. Because there was a private Myron Cope, as hard as that may be to imagine. Okay, so that's tomorrow. Have a good one and stay sane if that's possible. I'm forgetting what I do here. Oh, yeah, I remember. Okay, guys. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.